So in this video, we're going to be looking at Home Rule League and we'll continue off from where we left in the previous video. We had just introduced you to Home Rule League and we had introduced you to Tilak and Besant. Lokmanya Tilak toured Maharashtra extensively and linked the question of Swaraj with the demand for the formation of states on the basis of language and provision of education in the vernacular. Tilak was focusing on the vernacular language and on formation of states on the basis of language. This is what happened largely in independent India. Tilak was a staunch supporter of all languages and not just Marathi. In fact, he told V.B. Alur, who got up to support his condolence resolution on Gokhale, to speak in his vernacular tongue, that is, in Kannada. Tilak said, "Speak in Kannada to establish the right of the Kannada language." It is clear that the Lokmanya had no trace of regional or linguistic Marathi chauvinism. Tilak was no casteist either. He never supported untouchability and always worked to increase the cooperation between Brahmins and non-Brahmins. To the non-Brahmins, he explained that the real difference was not between Brahmin and non-Brahmin, but between the educated and the non-educated. Tilak, denouncing untouchability, said, "If a god were to tolerate untouchability, I would not recognize him as a god at all." Tilak was very clearly against untouchability and any social evils like casteism. Even the demand for Home Rule League was made wholly on secular lines. Quoting Tilak, "He who does what is beneficial to the people of this country, be it Mohammedan or an Englishman, he is not an alien. Alienness has to do with interests. Alienness is certainly not concerned with white skin or black skin or religion." Tilak clearly says that alienness has to do with interests. If your interests are aligned with India's interests, then you are not an alien. If your interests are not aligned with India's interests, then you will be considered an alien, irrespective of what color skin you have, what religion you belong to, what caste you belong to, etc. etc. This is what Tilak says. While these virtues might not sound so great today, please try to think of the social conditions of the time, that is, in the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Tilak was against untouchability from a time before Ambedkar, before Gandhi. At a time when society was quite orthodox, it was Tilak who stood up and said that casteism is evil, untouchability is evil. However, what has to be noted here is for that period, secularism was quite prevalent. Communal issues were not at their peak except when the British stoked and fueled it. Tilak's League's propaganda efforts were a huge hit with over 47,000 copies being sold. Even as the movement began to gather steam, the British government hit back. 23rd July 1916 was Tilak's 60th birthday. Tilak was given a purse of 1 lakh rupees. The same day, the government sent him a notice asking him to show cause why he should not be bound over for good behavior for a period of 1 year and demanding securities of rupees 60,000. For Tilak, this was the best gift he could have wanted for his birthday. Quoting Tilak, "The Lord is with us. Home rule will now spread like wildfire. Repression was sure to fan the fire of revolt." Tilak was now defended by a team of lawyers led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. You can clearly see that Muhammad Ali Jinnah was the founder of Pakistan, right? But he was also one of the greatest lawyers that the Indian National Congress had seen. And he was defending somebody like Lokmanya Tilak. That was the trust level in the early decades of the 20th century. But come the third and fourth decades of the 20th century, things would take a turn for the worse. We will discuss this later on in the course. Now, Jinnah was actually defending Lokmanya Tilak. They lost the case in the magistrate court, but Tilak was exonerated by the High Court in November. This victory was hailed across the country. Gandhi, writing in Young India, summed up the popular feeling. Thus, a great victory has been won for the cause of the Home Rule, which has been freed from the chains sought to be put on it. So Gandhi says that home rule has now been freed from the chains that had been sought to be put on it. Remember, at this time, Gandhi was still trying to understand how the national movement was working. Tilak was already a big leader at this point in time. Tilak pushed home the advantage now by claiming that the Home Rule movement had the sanction of the government, and he and his colleagues intensified their propaganda campaign for Home Rule. By April 1917, Tilak had enlisted 14,000 members. Annie Besant had managed 7,000 by March of 1917. Besides her existing Theosophical Society followers, Jawaharlal Nehru, B. Chakravarti, and J. Banerjee in Calcutta joined the Home Rule League. Annie Besant sold 300,000 copies of 26 English pamphlets focused mainly on the system of government prevalent in India and arguing for self government. This was one of the biggest contributions that anyone made in this period, and it was Annie Besant who sold over 3 lakh copies. And she was trying to educate the common people on how the system of government was organized and why the British should allow self government. Both Tilak and Annie Besant's leagues were organized very well and would respond to any call given by their leaders. The reason we focus so intensely on Lokamanya Tilak and Annie Besant is that the leaders themselves characterized the movement and home rule leagues that they set up. The study of the ideologies of leaders is an insight into the characteristics of the institutions they set up and the movements that they built. As time went by, in 1916, even some of the moderates began to join the Home Rule Leaguers. This was hardly surprising since the Home Rule was only doing what the moderates had wanted to do all along, that is, implement the program of political propaganda and education. The Home Rule League had helped the extremists establish their position firmly within the Congress. This was evident by the strength they demonstrated during the Lucknow session of Congress. We will discuss the Lucknow session of Congress and the Lucknow Pact in the next video. Thank you.